bảo rồi nhưng mà em cứ nhắc lại một lần cuối đi, voice up lần cuối và mời các bạn dồn hết lên trên. Mình đặt thẳng cái thẳng rồi. Vicky ơi, nhắc của chị với.
Vâng vâng.
Vicky ơi,
Dạ.
nhắc của chị với.
Đây em đang viết rồi.
Please, can you voice up a little bit?
Ladies and gentlemen, as the dialogue with VinFuture Prize 2023 laureates will be commencing shortly, may we kindly invite everyone to take your seats. Thank you. Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu, sự kiện giao lưu với chủ nhân giải thưởng VinFuture 2023 sẽ diễn ra trong ít phút nữa. Kính mời quý vị có thể dồn lên hàng ghế trước. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn.
Okay, so in the script there's someone who brings something to bring yourself, and other they also bring something. So just to be safe, ask them if they bring anything.
Ladies and gentlemen, the dialogue with VinFuture Prize 2023 laureates will be commencing in a few minutes. May we kindly invite everyone to take your seats. Thank you.
Global Science and Technology Prize for Humanity from Vietnam. One VinFuture Grand Prize of $3 million. 3 additional special VinFuture prizes valued at $500,000 each. VinFuture Prize honors science and technology work that creates or has a high potential to create meaningful change in the everyday lives of millions of people. Join us to make a change for a better future.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed educators, scientists, guests, and students. Welcome to the Dialogue with VinFuture 2023 Laureates, and welcome to Vin University. My name is Dan Ruel. I'm a faculty in the College of Arts and Sciences here at Vin University.
And my name is Vicky Zapp. I'm a senior student at the College of Business and Management at Vin University.
The VinFuture Prize was founded by Vingroup Chairman Mr. Pham Nhat Vuong and his wife, Madam Pham Tu Huong, and honors outstanding scientific achievements and transformational innovations which have the potential to impact the lives of millions.
Every year, the VinFuture Prize has a theme, and this year's theme is Boundless Unity.
With that theme in mind, we invite you to enjoy a short video about the VinFuture Prize this year. Please enjoy.
Climate change is here, it is terrifying, and it is just the beginning. The era of global warming has ended, the era of global boiling has arrived.
2023, năm nóng nhất trong 125.000 năm qua. Riêng tại châu Phi, hơn 23 triệu người đang thiếu đói do hạn hán. Thế giới vẫn phải đối mặt với vòng xoáy xung đột, bạo lực liên tục nổ ra. An ninh lương thực, an ninh năng lượng, chống biến đổi khí hậu là những vấn đề cấp bách đặt lên hàng đầu. Trái đất là một nhà, chung sức toàn cầu là điều thế giới cần để gắn kết nhân loại trước những thách thức khó khăn. Thế giới không rào cản của khoa học công nghệ chính là chìa khóa tới tương lai tươi sáng. Chung sức toàn cầu chính là chủ điểm của giải thưởng khoa học công nghệ thường niên toàn cầu VinFuture lần thứ 3. Giá trị lớn nhất và cũng là sứ mệnh của giải thưởng là khuyến khích các nhà khoa học không phân biệt nền văn hóa và biên giới, hợp tác cùng nhau để phát triển các giải pháp mang lại lợi ích cho tất cả mọi người. Hệ thống giải thưởng VinFuture gồm 4 hạng mục. Giải thưởng chính trị giá hơn 73 tỷ đồng, tương đương 3 triệu đô la Mỹ. 3 giải đặc biệt mỗi giải trị giá hơn 12 tỷ đồng, tương đương 500.000 đô la Mỹ, dành cho nhà khoa học nữ, nhà khoa học đến từ các nước đang phát triển và nhà khoa học nghiên cứu các lĩnh vực mới. VinFuture, khoa học phụng sự nhân loại.
With the theme of Boundless Unity, today in this auditorium, we are honored to welcome the presence of several distinguished guests.
From the VinFuture Prize Council, please welcome Professor Gerard Albert Moreau, Professor Sumitra Dutta,
From the VinFuture Pre-Screening Committee, please welcome Professor Thục Quyên Nguyen and Professor Albert Pisano, the 2 co-chairs of the committee.
Please welcome Professor Monica Alonso Cota, Professor Korisha Abdul Karim,
Professor Ermias Kabrab, Professor Vivian Yam.
and please also welcome distinguished scientists Professor Salim Abdul Karim and Dr. Sadavasan Shankar.
From the VinFuture Foundation, please welcome Dr. Lê Thái Hà, Managing Director of the VinFuture Foundation.
From the hosting institution Vin University, please welcome Dr. Lê Mai Lan, Vice Chairwoman of Vin Group, President of Vin University, and Vice President of the VinFuture Foundation. And please welcome Professor David Bangsberg, Provost of Vin University.
As well as all of our distinguished laureates, students, teachers, researchers, and scientists here with us today. To commence this program, it is my honor to invite on stage Dr. Lê Mai Lan to deliver the opening remarks for this year's theme. Please welcome.
Dear VinFuture Prize laureates, esteemed scientists and educators, to all beloved students and delegates, VinUni is greatly honored to host today's dialogue with the esteemed VinFuture Prize winners. First and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations once again to all the VinFuture Prize laureates. Thank you. The award ceremony yesterday was profoundly meaningful, not only to the scientific community, but also to many Vietnamese. Scientists from over 90 countries submitted their inventions to compete in VinFuture prizes. It means that the global scientific community acknowledged, care about, and contribute to the effort in advancing science for humanity, both within the VinFuture Foundation specifically, and in Vietnam as a whole. And it is a source of immense pride. And during last night's ceremony, for the very first time, a Vietnamese scientist and his innovation were awarded. This marked a growing presence of Vietnamese scientists on the global map. For us, it is a truly honor. And secondly, I also want to extend my congratulations to the students, faculty, researchers present here today. Not many get the chance to directly meet the minds behind the great discoveries and human ideology like you have today. And what is more important and meaningful, you encounter them while you're still very young. Because being young means a lot. Youth carries both challenges and opportunities. Challenges stem from the issues like food security, aging population, natural disaster, environmental pollution that our generations face today and will continue to burden the next generations, including yours and even your children. So, however, youth also signifies opportunities and time to learn from science, from nature, from yourself, and address these issues timely and properly. So, we are so fortunate today to have this opportunity for exchange and for dialogue. Let all of us make the most of these precious 2.5 hours today to ask, to learn, to connect with friends, with scientists, connect with Vietnamese, but also connect with international partners and experts here today. This all will truly reflect this year's VinFuture theme, Boundless Unity, Science for Humanity. With that, I wish everyone good health, happiness, and success. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the welcoming words, Dr. Lê Mai Lan. As you've seen in the video earlier, big issues like heat, drought, food security, and others are prominent global concerns.
But what about Vietnam? What challenges are we facing? We would like to invite on stage VinUni students Nguyễn Minh Khôi and Trần Đình Lê Hoàng to share the thoughts of the younger generation on what they perceive to be the issues of our country. Please welcome them.
Good morning. First of all, we'd like to say thank you for your presence today, our distinguished guests, professors, and the audience. My name is Nguyễn Minh Khôi. I'm a fourth-year medical student from the College of Health Sciences at Vinh University.
My name is Trần Đình Lê Hoàng. I am a third-year student from the College of Business and Management. We are here to present to you the state of Vietnam's energy and health. And it is our honor to represent the youth in discussing today's energy and health topics. So it is good to start with an overview. Vietnam has been among one of the fastest growing countries in the region. However, we have been faced with many issues. Over the years, SDG number 3, which is the good health and well-being, has been one of the major challenges remaining. And SDG number 7, affordable and clean energy, its progress has still been stagnating. As a youth and a future workforce, we would like to highlight some major concerns for our Vietnam sustainable development. Our first concern, how do we bring emissions down while driving the economic growth up? To fulfill its net zero commitment by 2050, Vietnam has issued the Power Development Plan number 8 in May 2023. We aiming to integrate more renewable energy in the power mix. By 2045, there will be about 61% of renewable energy in the total power mix of Vietnam. However, Vietnam is a country and an economy still heavily dependent on coal and oil, the fossil fuels. How do we transition from a country with limited renewable energy to a country integrated with the majority of renewable energy without compromising energy security and economic growth? My second concern is, how do we anticipate energy waste and adjust energy transition for everyone? As more PV panels and batteries enter the market, they end up becoming waste at the end of their life cycle. They can pollute the environment and damage our living environment as a result. In COP28 this year, Vietnam has announced the Resource Mobilization Plan for the implementation of the Just Energy Transition Partnership. This is step number 1 in ensuring a socio-economic justice for the energy transition process. How do we move forward without leaving anyone behind?
Vietnam, with a total population of 105 million, is the 16th most populous country in the world. With an urban population of 39.5% and rapidly increasing, one of the major challenges that I'm deeply concerned about is the lack of healthcare access for people living in rural and remote areas in Vietnam. This disparity has led to poor health outcomes and higher rates of severe illness and mortality. This is also why I wanted to become a physician in order to help address this issue in my parents' hometown. But that's not all. As someone from Ho Chi Minh City, the biggest city in Vietnam, I'm also concerned about pollution and food safety. Both of these issues can increase the risk of respiratory, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal diseases, and even cancer, raising the healthcare costs and also increase the number of hospital admissions and mortality. So the big question remains, how do we address all of these interconnected social problems to increase or improve the public health outcome and ensure a sustainable future? We hope that our scientists' answers can help spark an inspiring discussion for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Khoi and Huang, for sharing your insights. And just like them, we all hope that the exchanges today and this afternoon will provide us with deeper understanding of not only your research journeys, but also how you went on your challenging path and how we can do the same.
Today's panel sessions will consist of two parts. In part one, we'll focus on discussions about green energy and sustainable development. And part two will focus on discussions about the social impact of innovations in agriculture and healthcare. In each panel, we'll begin with a few questions for the laureates to share their stories, and then we'll open up the floor to the audience for some interaction between you, the audience, and our esteemed laureates.
We all worry about climate change and increasing pollution, but fortunately, there have been scientific breakthroughs that help us mitigate these challenges. Before we introduce the first panel, let's watch a video honoring the grand prize winners, followed by the award for the female innovators. These are the pioneers who have brought great hope into the global fight against climate change. Please enjoy.
Năng lượng là nền tảng của cuộc sống, từ thời tiên sử cho tới xã hội hiện đại. Mọi hoạt động của con người đều cần tới năng lượng. Hiện nay, 80% năng lượng toàn cầu đến từ dầu mỏ, khí đốt và than đá. Nhưng các nguồn năng lượng này đang dần trở nên cạn kiệt. Khai thác và sử dụng quá mức tài nguyên dưới lòng đất đã khiến hành tinh xanh bị tổn thương nghiêm trọng. Và một công nghệ mới đã ra đời, giúp con người không còn phụ thuộc vào tài nguyên trong lòng đất. Công nghệ khai thác năng lượng sạch và vô tận từ bầu trời. Công nghệ pin mặt trời silicon đã được giới khoa học phát triển trong suốt nhiều thập kỷ. Tuy nhiên, các loại pin mặt trời hiện đại có hiệu suất cao đều dựa vào công nghệ bộ phát thụ động và tiếp điểm phía sau PERC. Nhờ công nghệ này, hiệu suất chuyển đổi năng lượng của pin mặt trời đã tăng vọt từ 15% lên mức 25% như hiện nay, mở đường để năng lượng xanh được sử dụng một cách rộng rãi hơn. Hiện nay, pin công nghệ PERC chiếm tới 60% thị phần pin mặt trời trên toàn thế giới. Từ năm 2010 đến năm 2022, tỷ trọng năng lượng mặt trời đã tăng 18 lần, lên mức 14,7% trong cơ cấu năng lượng toàn cầu và dự báo sẽ đạt 22,2% vào năm 2027, đóng góp lớn cho tiến trình dịch chuyển khỏi năng lượng hóa thạch của nhân loại. Nguồn năng lượng sạch đến từ một thực thể vĩ đại như mặt trời đã có thể được cất giữ trong những viên pin nhỏ bé. Pin lithium-ion đã mở ra một kỷ nguyên mới cho lĩnh vực lưu trữ năng lượng khi mang đến cơ hội giúp người dân ở mọi nơi, thuộc mọi tầng lớp xã hội đều có thể tiếp cận và sử dụng năng lượng xanh bền vững. Pin lithium-ion chính là thành phần nền tảng của thế giới hiện đại khi cung cấp năng lượng cho hơn 15 tỷ thiết bị di động, 26 triệu xe điện trên toàn cầu, cũng như hàng triệu thiết bị điện trong cuộc sống hàng ngày. Chỉ riêng trong lĩnh vực giao thông, việc chuyển từ xe động cơ đốt trong sang xe điện giúp giảm hàng tỷ tấn CO2 phát thải vào bầu khí quyển. Với khả năng tích trữ năng lượng sạch và tuổi thọ pin tốt, pin lithium-ion và các loại pin xanh mới được sáng chế và lấy cảm hứng từ pin lithium-ion được coi là những người hùng giải cứu trái đất. Cải tiến đột phá trong sản xuất năng lượng xanh bằng pin mặt trời và lưu trữ bằng pin lithium-ion đã góp phần quan trọng trong việc đẩy nhanh quá trình chuyển đổi sang năng lượng tái tạo, giúp giảm thiểu biến đổi khí hậu toàn cầu, tạo nền tảng cho một thế giới di động đa kết nối và mở ra các cơ hội mới trong việc tiếp cận năng lượng sạch với chi phí phải chăng. Thông qua đó, công trình góp phần đáng kể vào sự phát triển công bằng và bền vững trên toàn cầu. Giải thưởng chính VinFuture 2023 sẽ được vinh danh 4 nhà khoa học cho phát minh đột phá, kiến tạo nền tảng bền vững cho năng lượng xanh thông qua việc sản xuất bằng pin mặt trời và lưu trữ bằng pin lithium-ion, bao gồm giáo sư Martin Andrew Green, nhà khoa học Australia, người tiên phong phát triển công nghệ bộ phát thụ động và tiếp điểm phía sau cho pin mặt trời. Giáo sư Stanley Whittingham, nhà khoa học người Mỹ gốc Anh, người khởi xướng và khám phá ra nguyên lý hoạt động của pin lithium-ion. Giáo sư Rashid Yazami, nhà khoa học Maroc, người đã khám phá ra sự xen kẽ điện hóa thuận nghịch của các ion lithium với than trì và nhiệt động lực học của quá trình sạc và xả pin. Giáo sư Akira Yoshino, nhà khoa học Nhật Bản, với công trình tiên phong trong việc sử dụng muội than ở cực âm của pin lithium-ion. Năm 1986, khi thế giới còn đang tranh cãi về cơ chế hình thành lỗ thủng tầng ozone, một người phụ nữ đã 2 lần lãnh đạo một nhóm các nhà khoa học thuộc Cơ quan Quản lý Khí quyển và Đại dương Quốc gia Mỹ đến Nam Cực để tìm câu trả lời. Bà và các đồng nghiệp đã phải chịu đựng nhiệt độ lạnh giá khủng khiếp và bóng tối bao phủ gần 24 giờ mỗi ngày để thu thập những bằng chứng tin cậy, chứng minh cho giả thuyết về tác động của chất CFC trong việc làm suy giảm tầng ozone đặc biệt lớn tại khu vực này. CFC, loại hóa chất được sử dụng phổ biến trong các thiết bị làm lạnh vào thế kỷ 20, được coi là kẻ thù của tầng ozone, tấm lá chắn ngăn bức xạ cực tím có hại từ mặt trời, giúp bảo vệ sự sống trên trái đất. Kết quả nghiên cứu thực nghiệm của nhà khoa học nữ là nền tảng thúc đẩy các nỗ lực toàn cầu và đưa đến sự ra đời của Nghị định thư Montreal năm 1987. Đây là một trong những hiệp định quốc tế thành công nhất trong việc giải quyết vấn đề môi trường toàn cầu, giúp đạt được đồng thuận trên toàn thế giới để loại bỏ dần các chất gây hại cho tầng ozone. Kết quả công bố năm 2016 cho thấy lỗ thủng tầng ozone đã thu hẹp hơn 4 triệu km vuông so với mức đỉnh của năm 2000 và sẽ hồi phục hoàn toàn trong những thập kỷ tới. Cùng với các hiệp ước chống biến đổi khí hậu khác, Nghị định thư Montreal đã góp phần đáng kể vào việc bảo vệ hệ thống khí hậu toàn cầu, giảm mức nhiệt độ nóng lên toàn cầu từ 2 đến 5 độ C xuống còn 0,5 độ C vào năm 2100. Việc phục hồi tầng ozone còn là nền tảng trong việc duy trì sự sống trên trái đất, giúp bảo tồn đa dạng sinh học và cân bằng sinh thái. Giải đặc biệt VinFuture 2023 dành cho nhà khoa học nữ sẽ được vinh danh giáo sư Susan Solomon, nhà khoa học người Mỹ, trong việc khám phá cơ chế suy giảm tầng ozone ở Nam Cực, góp phần thúc đẩy Nghị định thư Montreal, một nỗ lực quan trọng giúp giảm lượng lớn phát thải khí nhà kính trên toàn cầu.
A big congratulations to these very well-deserving award winners. And please welcome to the stage the recipients of the VinFuture Grand Prize for their remarkable contributions to renewable energy and energy storage with solar cells and lithium-ion batteries. Please welcome Professor Martin Green, Professor Stanley Whittingham, Professor Rashid Yazami, and Professor Akira Yoshino.
Please also welcome to the stage the recipient of the VinFuture Prize for Female Innovators, Professor Susan Solomon, whose research into the Antarctic ozone hole has spearheaded the UN Montreal Protocol.
Okay, well, first of all, congratulations. You must be feeling very proud over the last 24 hours. And obviously, your long-term contributions to science are truly incredible. So first of all, congratulations and thank you for your work. Just for the audience, a bit of context, you may or may not know that Professor Whittingham and Professor Yoshino were awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry back in 2019. And the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences also honored the significance of the graphite anode invented by Professor Yazami. And Professor Green has also recently received the Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering in 2023 for PERC solar cells. So a lot of tremendous accomplishments. But beyond all of these accomplishments, there is obviously the human side to our scientists here today. So we'd like to ask a few questions, not necessarily about your discoveries and inventions, but maybe the other side of being a teacher, a professor, a researcher. So I'd like to start by exploring the motivations that drove you to do scientific research. So Professor Yazami, do you remember the first experiment that you ever did, and how did that motivate you to go further into science?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for this wonderful event. The day I saw the graphite changing from black color to gold color was absolutely an unforgettable day in my life. So when lithium goes inside, intercalate into graphite, there is a change in the electronic structure of graphite, and as a result, the color goes from black to blue to gold color. And when I saw the gold color, I said, oh my gosh, this is the first time ever in an electrochemical cell that lithium was intercalated into graphite. So we can store lithium into graphite, and the good news is that we can take lithium out from graphite. So this reaction is reversible, and that brought the idea of the rechargeable anode for lithium batteries. That was back to 1979.
Oh, amazing. And even earlier than that, when you were a child, was there some moment where you realized that you wanted to be a scientist, or did it happen over a long time?
Well, I started my chemistry career by producing hydrogen. Yes.
Sounds dangerous.
I used, actually, don't do it, it may be dangerous, but I used some bottles of Coca-Cola. I put some powder of aluminum inside and add some acetic acid, produce hydrogen, and they use some balloons. So I blow the balloons and they go to the sky. So that was my first experience in energy, green hydrogen.
And was that something you did at school as part of a class, or was it something you just discovered on your own as a child experimenting?
You know, curiosity is something that you learn by looking at things and asking yourself good questions. Why things happen as they think? Can we improve them, and so on? So this is starting from really teenage, when I was really at age 11, 12, that I started to look at. And I'm originally from an imperial city in Morocco, which is Fez. And the Fez is like Hanoi, many, small shops, people doing a lot of things. Yesterday I saw a man who repairs watches, like I saw when in the 60s, it's incredible, he has this look. So anyway, when you look at this, you just look at the way how people are doing things with their hands. And when hands are working, the brain is working, okay? So that's how it started.
Great, thank you. That's very motivating for our young scientists in the room. Sorry, Vicky.
Yeah, Professor Yoshino, I understand that many years ago, even before you were in college, when you were a child, you told us that you began being interested in science when you read books by Michael Faraday. How did you go from there to being interested in researching batteries?
Okay, I studied the research of lithium battery from 1981, and at that time I'm 33 years old, and my research was concerned with new materials, not battery research. And I found that they say the battery materials is the most suitable application for these new materials I found. And finally, I selected the most suitable anode material and cathode material, and combined with this is the current lithium-ion battery.
You told us that the most important thing in science is to be curious. So how did you sustain your curiosity all these years while you were doing research?
You mean the motivation? Yeah. Oh, it is very difficult to keep motivation during a research period. The most impressive motivation is the future. This technology or this research will be in success in near future. This is the most important motivation for researchers, I think.
Thank you.
And Professor Green, we understand that you brought a model. Is there something you'd like to show the audience, or?
Yes, I did bring a model, but it's down at my seat in the audience, but I can go down and get it maybe when you're talking to one of the other awardees.
Sure.
But my research is in the area of solar energy conversion, and the basic unit is a solar cell, which is quite compact. So that's why I brought a solar cell along. But I've got it, yeah, I can bring it. Maybe I'll go down and just grab it now. It'll only take a second.
And as you're grabbing it, we have a very interesting photo on the screen. If we could show the photo of a very young Professor Green surrounded by. So the first challenge is, can you spot Professor Green in this photo?
And can you guess when this photo was taken?
It's hard to tell. I mean, they're all similar ages and all very handsome, so it might be hard to identify. But this was taken, I believe it was 1989, was it? Or even before that?
No, it was taken in July of 1985, and this was the group that made the first solar cell. This is a solar cell here that could convert sunlight to electricity with more than 20% efficiency. And that had long been regarded as the limit that was feasible. And like the 4-minute mile of athletics, this was the 4-minute mile of photovoltaics. And this young team up on the screen behind me were the group that produced the first 20% efficient cell. And then we went on to take the conversion efficiency to 25%, which is now the normal efficiency in manufacturing.
And what pushed you to go beyond that theoretical limit? Because I imagine a lot of people would assume it's impossible. You cannot reach 20%. So what motivated you to try and prove them wrong?
We set our first world record for silicon cell efficiency in 1983, and that was an 18% efficient cell. But at the same time, I wrote a theoretical paper just exploring the limits on what a silicon cell could really do, and came across a mechanism that hadn't really been identified before as imposing that limit, and came up with a limit of between 29 and 30% efficiency, and figured if 29% was the limit, we should be able to get to 25% in the lab. So that became our experimental target for our group, to reach 25% efficiency. And the photo up there just shows the first step on that path when we got above the 20% figure.
I see a lot of smiling faces, so it must have been a very proud moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was a very proud moment. You know, prior to this, all the developments in solar had really occurred in the US. So all the previous records for cell performance had been developed, you know, largely in the space program in the US.
And Professor Green, we understand that a scientist and actually a former student of yours, Shi Zhengrong, became a billionaire by founding Suntech, which is now the world's biggest manufacturer of silicon solar cells, and also one of the first to implement your PERC technology. So can you share a little bit about that, and do you think that institutional adoption from places like Suntech is what made your invention go mainstream?
Yes, I've been an academic for a long time. Next year will be my 50th year, and I have supervised to completion over 120 PhD students, 120. But Dr. Shi was my 12th PhD student. He was born in China, but became an Australian citizen. Around the turn of the century, some of the laws in China relating to private companies changed, and he became interested in going back to China to set up manufacturing of solar panels in China. So China had none of the infrastructure required for that at the time, so we all thought that was going to be a very difficult challenge. But with help from some of his colleagues who left to join him in his adventure, and from some others of us that just helped him out part-time, he was successful. And Germany had introduced a special scheme to promote the development of wind and solar, which was a feed-in tariff scheme where you got paid at what it cost to generate electricity with those technologies at the time. So he was able to sell his product into the German scheme and allowed him to grow quite quickly. And the rest of the story is that some US investors were very interested in Chinese stocks in that era. And they noticed how well he was doing. And in 2005, they organized a management buyout of his original Chinese investors, and he listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So it was the first private Chinese company to list on any US exchange. And it turned out to be the biggest technology float of that year. And overnight, he became the first solar billionaire as a result of that listing. And that was very important in the history of these solar cells, because traditionally they've been quite expensive, because the silicon wafer that the cells are built on are the same that are used in microelectronics. And a wafer this size, when used in microelectronics, would cost thousands of dollars. But in solar now, this wafer is worth about $1. So the cost has been taken right out of the technology, largely due to its transition, the manufacturing transitioning to China and Vietnam. So Vietnam is one of the big manufacturers of solar panels. I think it's number 3 in the world in terms of the manufacture of solar panels. And in the use, Vietnam is in the top 10 or top 12 countries worldwide in the actual use of solar within the country. So it's been a huge success story, and many of my other students then got consumed by the Chinese manufacturing industry, and there's several other listings on the US exchanges up until the global financial crisis. And all those companies that my students started, most of them started by my students, form the backbone of the worldwide manufacturing industry, and why we now have cheap solar cells. We can thank some of my former students for their initiatives.
That's fantastic. So I can see that you're not just a great scientist, but you're also a very inspirational teacher and served as the launchpad to many of your students' careers.
And Professor Whittingham, from what we understand, that's very similar to you. You've had many students who have become quite successful after studying with you. So can you share any stories about maybe some of your students who have become quite successful after working with you? And how important is that relationship between, say, a teacher and a student?
I think the relationship is very important between professor and student. And I learned this when in high school, when I had 2 professors, one in physics and one in chemistry, got me all excited about science. Then my advisor at Oxford similarly kept my enthusiasm up. So I learned it's very important. I interact with most of them every week, and the comments I got back last night after the ceremony were from a number of my past students. They're the first ones to respond. So one of my students runs the Battery 500 Consortium in the United States, which is one of the largest consortiums at the present time. She's a Pacific Northwest National Lab, and she is from China. She liked the United States, has children in the United States, and manages a family at the same time as becoming a top-rated scientist and manager. And she and I talk probably every 2 weeks. So we interact, I help her, she helps me, and I have similarly students at other large corporations such as Apple, Tesla. Large number are now going into startups in the United States, in Canada, and number of them are in China and one or two in Japan. So they come from all around the world. And I should probably emphasize for a lot of people here, I spent 15 years in industry, and I came back to academia to keep me young and excited about science, because you get a new group of 18-year-olds coming in each year, and they don't let you sit back and rest on your laurels. It's one question after the other. How do we do this? How did you do that? So I think, no, mentorship is extremely important. And on my 80th birthday, which was just about 2 years ago, my secretary set up a Zoom call, and about 100 of my ex-PhD students logged in from all around the world. So we keep in touch all the time, and I think it's important.
Oh, that's incredible. And you mentioned about how you can also learn from your students. So what are some things that you've learned from the students you've taught?
How to interact better, maybe. No, they ask the obvious questions, and sometimes the hardest questions don't come from senior people. I give some public lectures. They come from 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds. They ask the, can I say, the obvious questions you never think about. So I think, no, I said they keep me on my toes and keep me going. And
great. Thank you, thank you.
Professor Solomon, congratulations on receiving the VinFuture Prize. We also found a very unique photo of you many years ago in the South Pole. Do you remember this moment? Of course. Could you tell us a little bit about what was going on in your head and how this photo influenced your research?
I like to call these guys the town welcoming committee, actually. I had a fantastic time in the Antarctic. This is not exactly at the South Pole. This is McMurdo Station. The South Pole itself, I've also been to, and it is absolutely empty. Is this working? Yeah, okay. It is the most pristine, untouched, beautiful, endless plain of snow that you'll ever see in your life. When you get to the coast, which is where this is, that's when you find the wonderful abundance of life, penguins, seals. It's a remarkable, remarkable place, totally different from any other place on Earth. It's really like going to another planet. And I did bring one little thing we can all look at, which is a sample of the cleanest air in the world, a small little tube that was filled at the South Pole. This air is much cleaner than Hanoi air, let me tell you. No motorcycles, none of that stuff. You want to have a look? I mean, it's just... But I do want to say one thing. It's ironic that this place, so clean, so untouched, has been subject to climate change. We are seeing retreat of glaciers on the edges of the Antarctic, just as we're seeing retreat of glaciers elsewhere. So the climate change problem is truly a global problem. It's touching the whole world.
And we understand that your research was the backbone behind the Montreal Protocol. Could you share a little bit more about how you got your research to be turned into policy and the relationship between research and policy in creating a better world?
To sort of tell a few things about it, when the Antarctic ozone hole opened up, it was a huge shock to the world. Nobody expected that. And what I did, which had not been thought about before, was to bring in the role of chemistry on surfaces. What's really unique about Antarctica is that it's so cold. It is truly the coldest place on Earth, and that means that clouds can form in the Antarctic stratosphere, and those clouds change the chemistry from a gas phase process to one that involves surfaces. Just as this surface is so important for solar energy, so too is that surface important for the chemistry in up there. This actually helped the world, I think, in the sense that we really needed to understand that phenomenon to connect it back to what we were doing, producing the chemicals that caused that damage. So I drew the line of what that chemistry looks like. And then I went to Antarctica and actually made the first measurements that showed that indeed that is what happens. So I think once that chemistry was all understood, honestly, the industry began to get a little concerned, realizing that their product was dangerous. Now this is cutting in and out. Realizing that their product was dangerous to the planet, that industry, I think, paid attention quickly, and the policymakers paid attention quickly. So I like to tell people there's 3 P's that are involved in solving any environmental problem. The first one is the issue has to be personal. The ozone layer is personal because without an ozone layer, we wouldn't have life on the planet. It has to be perceptible. Having the Antarctic ozone hole made this issue very perceptible to people, but changes in our climate are becoming perceptible too. And finally, you have to have practical solutions. We had substitutes for those dangerous chemicals, and so that process was very fast. We have practical solutions for climate change too. It's right here in this solar panel. It's right there in your batteries. We have the technology to solve this problem. So I think we're on the cusp of solving the climate change problem too. We have to demand it. We will get we get the government we demand, and we also get the environment we demand. So I think it's up to us as citizens to make sure that we now turn to climate change with a level of interest, passion, and understanding. People are starting to do that. I think the whole world has to do it more.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Solomon. And we'd love to hear from the audience. So there's a very famous quote that you don't really understand something unless you can explain it to a 5-year-old. So we're going to try something called Explain Like I'm 5. And we've prepared 3 questions about your discoveries. And we're going to invite students or students at heart from the audience to try and explain this concept to a child who's 5. And our laureates here will decide, is it a clear, convincing explanation? And we have some wonderful prizes for the brave volunteers from the Wien Future Prize Foundation.
All right, so let's start with the first prompt. What is so special about lithium and lithium-ion batteries? We have 3 people on stage today who discovered, worked in this field. Is there anybody at all in the audience who thinks they can explain this simply and would like to take a shot at it?
Remember, there's an amazing prize from Wien Future just for trying. Your science doesn't need to be perfect, it's okay, just give it your best shot.
All right, do you see any hands, Dan? Could you raise your hand up high? Oh, I see a hand over there. Please pass the mic to the brave young lady over there.
Hello, everyone?
Yes.
My answer is it has higher efficiency and a longer life cycle. Also, you can, it lasts longer and you can charge in it. Yeah, that's all, I think.
Okay, please introduce your name and your school.
Oh, my name is Viet Anh, and I'm from Newton Grammar School. Yeah.
Thank you, Viet Anh.
Yeah.
And we saw a hand over in that corner from a young lady as well. Let's see if she can try to explain it in even more convincing terms. So what do you think, Laureates? Is there anything that you'd like to add, maybe, after she tries, she gives it her go?
Good morning, professor and student. I'm over here in the middle, so I can.
Oh,
Yes.
hello.
My name is Do Chung Hiếu. I'm from Vietnam National University of Agriculture, from Faculty of Agronomy. So I can explain, explain for 5 years old about special about lithium and in lithium-ion battery. So you may think that this kind of storage for everything for the washing machine to run, for your television to watch, and it's a kind of changing the kind of material to store the energy, so that could run your washing machine, your television, to everyone, to every people. That's my answer.
Thank you. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to these explanations? And then why don't you decide which one would get the prize from VinFuture? Sirs. It's behind you, yes. What is so special about lithium and lithium-ion batteries?
Yeah, so why lithium? Why not some other kind of element?
Perhaps what's most special about lithium-ion batteries is that anybody in this room who doesn't have one on them right now, raise your hand if you don't have one. So raise your hand if you have one. Raise your hand if you have more than one. Your watches, your laptops. So that's what's special. It's in everybody's life now. It's small, it's now low cost. It can also solve most of our climate change problems if we get the politicians around the world on board. And it's happening in certain parts of the world, and I think we're moving in the right trajectory today. So that's what's special about lithium-ion. It can solve many of our world's problems.
Thank you. And the next one is about solar cells. So could you explain, like we're 5, what is the biggest challenge of making solar panels more efficient? So Professor Green and the other laureates reached around 20 to 25%, but what's stopping us from going above 20, 25, 30% efficiency? Why is it so hard?
Does any young, brave scientist, oh, I see a hand over there, very fast, immediately. Please introduce your name and your school.
Well, hello. Okay, thanks. Hi, Professor. My name is Chandidat. I'm from Hanoi University of Science and Technology. And my answer is why making solar panel more efficient so challenging, because we get the energy from the sun, which include photon, and that energy may convert one part to heat energy, but other meaningful work, like you think that you can run your device or make your home light up, but the rate of that meaningful energy turn to heat is now really high, and we need to make that smaller, which it not let nature let us do that so easy. So that's my answer. So thank you.
Thank you. Professor Green, anything to add about the challenge behind this?
Yes, I think the answer touched upon the crux of the issue. So a solar cell responds to photons in the sunlight, and it doesn't matter whether it's a red photon, which has quite low energy, or a blue photon, which has a lot of energy and gives you sunburns and creates holes in the ozone layer. It doesn't matter whether it's a blue photon or a red one, you get the same result from a solar cell. You can get one electron flowing out of the solar cell terminals. So a silicon cell is very good at converting. This is a silicon cell. It can convert all the blue photons, all the red ones, and even some of the infrared photons, so all the photons that make up the colors of the rainbow and so on. But the blue photons aren't converted very efficiently. But if you can make a solar cell from another material that is good at converting blue photons and put it on top of a silicon cell, you can get a higher efficiency because the cell on top will convert the blue photons efficiently, can't convert the red, they go through to the silicon cell, which can convert the red quite efficiently. In that way, you can improve the overall process. So we made the first 25% efficient silicon cells, and this is a commercial cell, it's 25% efficient, or I think 26% efficient maybe. But we hold the record for solar conversion to electricity of 40%. And to get that record, we had 4 solar cells, each converting different colors in the spectrum to electricity. So, you know, that's what's really holding up the efficiency of a silicon cell, is that it can't convert the blue photons very efficiently. But you can overcome that by stacking solar cells from different materials on top of each other. The only problem is in doing that is that silicon is such an ideal material for widespread use. It's abundant, you know, it's in the form of rocks, it's the second most abundant element in the Earth's crust. Only oxygen has a higher abundancy. It's non-toxic. It's very stable material, as you know, as its role in rock forming might suggest, and it can produce a high efficiency cell. There's only 7 materials in total that have produced 20% efficient solar converters, and they all involve materials that are either scarce, like gallium or indium, or toxic, like lead or cadmium, or unstable, like some of the perovskite solar cells that there's a lot of interest in at the moment. So finding a material that has those 4 properties of silicon is the real challenge facing photovoltaics, the most important research challenge in the field, I believe.
Thank you, wonderful explanation. And a big thank you to our brave volunteers. We do have some prizes from the VinFuture Foundation, so thank you very much for your courage to explain like we're 5. And with that, it's very encouraging that our young scientists today have such curiosity about these big topics in science. And we appreciate your sharing today.
I think we actually have one more question. Do you want to try that one? Because I think it's really interesting.
Shall we do the third one? Okay, about
yes.
ozone.
What is the problem we're facing with the ozone layer, and why is it so critical? One last volunteer, and then we switch gears. I see, immediately. Okay, how about the young lady over here? We've had lots of guys.
So, first of all, good morning everyone here. My name is Trần Hà Anh and I'm from Newton Grammar School. So to answer the question, what is the problem we are facing with the ozone layer nowadays and why is it so important to address? So my answer is the problem we are currently facing is that our ozone layer is getting thinner and thinner as we put so much effort into like investing into some finding the fossil fuels, for example. So we are like depleting our ozone layer so hard. And the reason why it is crucial for us to deal with this problem because the ozone layer is the base and is one of the most important criteria for us to survive in our planet. So if it's like literally if we don't have our ozone layer to get back to what it is, we literally cannot survive now. So I think it's the most realistic reason why we should save our ozone layer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wonderful answer. Thank you. Professor Solomon, would you like to add anything, or?
You did beautifully. That was very, very good. You're quite right. If we didn't have an ozone layer, we would have no life on this planet. So it protects us from rays from the sun that are not good for any kind of biological life. And you're right that it had been under assault from chemicals we were putting into it. But actually, the amazing, amazing good news is that we stopped putting those chemicals in. The nations of the world actually agreed to do something about it, and they have done something about it. Every nation, all around the world. And that's the thing that we have to replicate now with climate change. That's a bigger challenge, but personally, I believe that we are really on the cusp of doing that too. But you're absolutely right about ozone. Fantastic answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you have more technical questions, we can save that for this afternoon because there will be public lectures on all of these technologies. And this activity closes the first panel. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. Now, thank you.
So before we move on to the second panel, we invite you to sit back and enjoy the traditional melodies of a Vietnamese song named Chom Cơm, which is brought to you by the Gió Sang Choir. Please enjoy the performance.
Hãy
So, ladies and gentlemen, we just finished the first panel, and while we're preparing for the second panel, I'm very curious to see what the young students here today are thinking and what our audience is thinking. We have a very diverse range of audience, many students coming from high school, many students coming from college. I just want to talk to a few members of the audience maybe and ask, how are you feeling after the first panel, and if there's anything you want to ask the laureates in the second panel. Would you like to share, young lady?
I'm feeling nervous and also exciting because the first time I'm going to sorry. But I'm very thankful. Thank you for inviting me to this event. This is opportunity for me. Thank you.
Thank you for being so brave and sharing with us, even though you were nervous. Does anybody else want to share how they're feeling before we move to the second panel? Yeah?
Good morning, everyone in the auditorium. I hope we are all having a good morning. First of all, I'm very, very, very honored and grateful to be here to listen to all the professors and the laureates, and not even the professors, but also like the VUni students, how they having the presentation and also the amazing performance that we just witnessed. It was so wonderful, and I cannot put my feelings or my emotions to words. The only word I have is honor and grateful. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the second part of the panel and you learn plenty from the laureates this afternoon.
So ladies and gentlemen, apart from the amazing advances in green energy and climate that we talked about in our previous panel of laureates, there have been incredible discoveries in the agricultural and health sciences fields, which have had a profound impact on humanity.
So now let's watch a video honoring the winners of the Special Prize for Innovators from Developing Countries and Special Prize for Innovators from Emerging Fields. These are the silent heroes that have really brought great hope in the battle for food security and community health. Please enjoy the video before we get to meet them on stage.
Những năm giữa thế kỷ 20, châu Á đối mặt với cuộc khủng hoảng lương thực trầm trọng. Gạo chiếm tới 80% nhu cầu lương thực của người dân, nhưng năng suất lúa trung bình chỉ đạt 1,1 tấn trên 1 hectare. Nạn đói kinh niên đã cướp đi sinh mạng của hàng triệu người. Vào thập niên 60, giống lúa IR8 với sản lượng 7 tấn trên 1 hectare do Viện Nghiên cứu Lúa Quốc tế phát triển đã tạo nên cuộc cách mạng xanh, phép màu cứu sống hàng triệu người ở châu Mỹ Latin và Nam Á. Sau thành công của IR8, các giống lúa mới với khả năng kháng nhiều loại sâu bệnh, thời gian sinh trưởng ngắn và cho năng suất cao liên tục ra đời. Nổi bật trong đó là IR36 và IR64. Các giống lúa này tiếp tục được trồng ở khắp châu Á và là giống bố mẹ cho hàng nghìn giống lai trong nhiều thập kỷ cho tới ngày nay, góp phần quan trọng đẩy lùi nạn đói trên toàn cầu. Tại Việt Nam ở vùng đồng bằng sông Cửu Long, cuối những năm 1970, mùa màng luôn thất bát vì thiên tai, sâu bệnh. Nhưng chỉ với vài chục gram giống lúa IR36 được Viện Nghiên cứu Lúa Quốc tế gửi tặng, một nhà khoa học người Việt đã nhân giống thành công và trồng phổ biến ở nhiều nơi, góp phần giúp Việt Nam không chỉ thoát khỏi nạn đói, mà đến nay đã trở thành một trong 3 quốc gia xuất khẩu gạo lớn nhất thế giới. Nếu như vào đầu năm 1980, hơn 30% dân số châu Á vẫn chịu tình trạng thiếu dinh dưỡng, thì tỷ lệ này chỉ còn khoảng 8,5% vào năm 2022. Giá gạo hiện nay chỉ bằng một nửa so với thời điểm trước cuộc cách mạng xanh. Giải đặc biệt VinFuture 2023 dành cho nhà khoa học đến từ các nước đang phát triển, được trao cho giáo sư Gurdev Singhus, người Mỹ gốc Ấn Độ, và giáo sư Võ Tòng Xuân, người Việt Nam, cho những đóng góp quan trọng trong việc phát minh và phổ biến nhiều giống lúa năng suất cao, kháng bệnh tốt, góp phần thúc đẩy tính bền vững của sản xuất nông nghiệp và góp phần đảm bảo an ninh lương thực toàn cầu. Trong một thế giới phát triển, thừa cân béo phì đang trở thành một đại dịch mới. Tổ chức Y tế Thế giới dự báo đến năm 2035 trên toàn cầu, cứ 4 người sẽ có một người thừa cân béo phì. Cũng theo WHO, tiểu đường, Alzheimer hay các dạng thoái hóa thần kinh khác là 2 trong số 10 nguyên nhân gây tử vong nhiều nhất. Chi phí y tế cho chăm sóc và điều trị các loại bệnh này lên tới hàng nghìn tỷ đô la Mỹ mỗi năm. Một cuộc cách mạng trong y học đã diễn ra với việc khám phá ra peptide giống glucagon 1 và xác định vai trò quan trọng của chúng trong việc điều chỉnh nồng độ insulin và chuyển hóa glucose. GLP-1 có tác dụng ức chế tế bào alpha tiết glucagon và kích thích tế bào beta tiết insulin, giúp điều chỉnh mức đường huyết. GLP-1 còn có khả năng ức chế sự thèm ăn và làm giảm cảm giác no, từ đó góp phần vào quá trình giảm cân và điều trị béo phì. Phát hiện đã mở ra cánh cửa trong việc điều trị cho hơn 400 triệu người mắc bệnh tiểu đường loại 2 và hơn 1 tỷ người mắc bệnh béo phì. Khám phá quan trọng này còn thúc đẩy nghiên cứu và phát triển các phương pháp điều trị mới. Năm 2023, có hơn 20 triệu liều thuốc GLP-1 được sử dụng trên toàn cầu. Giải đặc biệt VinFuture 2023 dành cho nhà khoa học nghiên cứu các lĩnh vực mới, được trao cho 4 nhà khoa học. Giáo sư Daniel Joshua Drucker đến từ Canada, giáo sư Joanne Francis Habener đến từ Mỹ, giáo sư Jens Jules Horst đến từ Đan Mạch, phó giáo sư Svetlana Masot đến từ Mỹ. Với công trình tiên phong khám phá vai trò của peptide giống glucagon 1 là nền tảng cho các phương pháp điều trị bệnh tiểu đường và béo phì hiệu quả, giúp thúc đẩy các liệu pháp điều trị mới đối với các bệnh thoái hóa thần kinh, góp phần kiến tạo một thế giới khỏe mạnh hơn.
Now, please welcome on stage the laureates of the Special Prize for Innovators from Developing Countries, Professor Gurdev Kush and Professor Võ Tòng Xuân, for their pioneering work on rice cultivation and disease prevention techniques, which have changed millions of lives in Asia and especially in Vietnam's Mekong Delta. Please welcome.
And please also welcome the laureates of the Special Prize for Innovators with Outstanding Achievements in Emerging Fields, Professor Daniel Drucker, Professor Jens Jules Holst, and Associate Professor Svetlana Mozhov, for their breakthrough research on glucagon-like peptide-1-based treatment of diabetes. Please welcome. Okay, so welcome to the panel, and again, a big congratulations for the very well-deserved awards last night. So I'm sure that many scientists and academics here in the audience, just like you, strive for practical impact in research. But the journey from discovery to application obviously is not easy and takes a lot of time and patience. So we'd love to hear some insights about working and collaborating to make ideas become reality. So first of all, Professors Drucker, Holst, and Mozhov, I'm sure the audience is curious about how did you become interested in these very novel ideas of glucagon-like peptides. Where did that curiosity come from to explore this new frontier?
Well, it was really the biology which drove the interest and later on the discovery of GLP-1. It was known in the 60s that when glucose is administered as a meal, there is a increase in insulin secretion and a beneficial effect to circulating glucose, as opposed if glucose is given intravenously. And that's what led to the idea that there are incretins, they're gut-derived substances which can stimulate insulin secretion and influence pancreatic functions. And so I think the 70s was really a revolution in developing different methodologies. And one of them was the cloning techniques, which allowed a great number of precursors which encoded different bioactive hormones. And the other one was the development of chemistry. It was really the development by Bruce Merrifield, who of the solid phase peptide synthesis. And that chemical approach was very efficient and allowed for synthesizing all these predicted and novel peptides. So when the sequence was published by Graham Bell, actually the first known sequence of the proglucagon molecule, it became obvious to use chemistry to try and find out what will be the function of this newly developed GLP-1. And the fact that it was very similar in its structure to glucagon at least suggested to me that it can be involved in regulating glucose metabolism. So that was the beginning.
Thank you. And Professor Holst, anything to add to that?
Well, I came from a completely different background. I trained in surgery, and and in those days, people were not interested in diabetes. They were interested in duodenal ulcer disease, you know, ulcers in the stomach and the duodenum. And so we were interested in the hormones that could inhibit acid secretion. And that was my entry to this. And some of the patients we were treating surgically, they developed hypoglycemia, low glucose after meals. So my job was to try to find out, why is that? And we found out that it is because of insulin stimulation, and exaggerated insulin stimulation. So we were looking for factors from the gut, and that's exactly how I got into this. So we managed to find out, find a molecule in the gut that contained glucagon, and we found out that this was half of the glucagon precursor. But we also realized that there was another half of the precursor molecule that we didn't know. And that was the one that became apparent through the works of the molecular biology. And as you said, Graham Bell came up with the structure. And it could predict that there might be some interesting and important peptides in that structure. In those days, looking at the hormone precursors was big fashion, you know, because it turned out that a hormone precursor could code for more than oil, could be cleaved to more than one hormone, actually several hormones. So it was always interesting to find out exactly what was in the precursors, and that's why we went for it.
And Professor Drucker, did you get involved in the early stages, or was this?
Yeah, we were all involved in the early stages, and actually the fourth person who is recognized for this work, Joel Habner, did the work that allowed Graham Bell to isolate the glucagon seeds. Joel isolated the first cDNAs for proglucagon from anglerfish. He lived in the New England area, and he could get this species of fish, and that sequence allowed the modern era of Graham Bell to isolate the next sequence. But as we've heard, in the early 1980s, late 1970s, the field of endocrinology switched from discovering hormones by taking animals and grinding up organs and isolating the substance to the discovery from molecular biology that there were hundreds of sequences that we had never seen before. And what did they do? And that is largely the story of GLP-1 superimposed upon the knowledge that it was related to glucagon and must have similar action. So it was a fascinating time in molecular biology and discovery.
And one thing more. The new, at that time, new technology of the radioimmunoassay made it possible to measure these hormones, and that was our specialty, to measure the hormones.
That's interesting. So it sounds like there were a lot of separate things that all came together serendipitously to form this discovery. That's fascinating. Vicky?
Yes. And Professor Swan and Professor Kush, I understand that you've been working together for many, many years. How did your paths first cross? And was there any critical incident that led you to want to devote your career to rice, the study of rice?
I grew up in a farming family, and during 1960s, 1970s, there was a lot of food shortage, and particularly in Asia. For example, my country, India, was importing 10 million tons of food grains, and there were predictions for famines. So I grew up in those situations, and my motivation was to do something to develop the crop varieties which can produce more food, more rice, so that there is a more food self-sufficiency. So I became a plant breeder. I was offered the position at International Rice Research Institute as a rice breeder. So the motivation or the innovation was to change the plant architecture, to change the plant which will give higher yield. So one of the innovation was to reduce the stature, height of the plant. Old rice varieties you take 150 to 160 centimeters. We reduce the plant height to 100 centimeters so that it does not fall over. It does not lodge during the storm. That was one innovation. The second was old varieties of rice used to take 150, 160 days to mature from seed to seed. We reduced the growth duration from 150 days, 115 days. This way, where farmers were growing only one crop, they could grow 2 crops of rice. That doubled the production by increasing the number of crops per hectare. And also, when the rice is short, it gives much higher yield. Old varieties will produce only about 30% grain, rest was all straw. New varieties produce half grain, half straw. So this led to major increases in rice production all over the world. And rice production increased very rapidly, and there was no fear of famines, and most of the countries became self-sufficient. I mentioned India used to import 10 million tons. The same country is now exporting 10 to 15 million tons of rice to provide those areas where more rice is needed. So those were the innovations which led to the Green Revolution. We still have some challenges in rice breeding. For example, the climate is affecting the productivity. With 1 degree rise in temperature, rice production goes down by 10%. That's a challenge. So we need the rice varieties which are more resilient, more tolerant to changing climate. The second is that we need varieties which will be less affected by flooding, by rising sea levels. Some seawater comes into the coastal areas, the soil becomes its salinity increases. So the idea is to develop rice varieties with more tolerance to salinity. Then there are problems, I think, health sciences. We need the varieties. The people who eat more rice, they suffer from vitamin, zinc, and iron. Those are the major elements which are needed in rice. So there are breeding program to have the vitamin A rice, the so-called the yellow rice, which when consumed produces the vitamin A in the digestive system. Then we are also raising the level of iron and zinc. Then, of course, there are problems of diabetes and rice. We are trying to produce rice varieties which have low glycemic acid index. So those are the type of rices which are also needed in the healthcare sector. Thank you very much.
And Professor Swan? Yes? Could you share a little bit about your journey and your work with Professor Kush as well? Could you share a little bit about how you became interested in researching rice and your collaboration with Professor Kush? Yes.
Well, I was working also in the International Rice Research Institute since 1969 to 71. So during that time, I learned more about rice technology, and my tutor is Professor Kush, who was a plant breeder of the Erie. And I'm an agronomist, only growing, but then we learn about selecting rice variety and so on. And I start, when I get back to Vietnam in 1971, in the middle of the war, I joined the College of Agriculture of the Cần Thơ University in the Mekong Delta. And during that time, we were introducing, the rice from Erie has bred, like Dr. Kush just described, was destined to give to all the country in Asia to try the new variety with a short duration and high yielding, to replace the traditional one like Dr. Kush had, very tall and easily to flood, to lodge. And so we have the first variety of IR8, IR5 to Vietnam since 1968. When I came back in 1971, and we were facing the problem of the brown plant hoppers. It's a very tiny insect, but when it infests the rice plant, you have thousands of them in each bush of the plant, of the rice. So it can burn the rice within 3 days. And Dr. Kush was saying that among the breeding goal, there's a objective to put the gene of insect resistant, in this case, the plant hopper resistant, into the high yielding rice. So I was able to select, because every time we get some problem, I wrote to Erie for new rice variety for us to test. So it was Dr. Koch who was the one who make a selection and send it to Vietnam. And we select among the lines he select the best one and multiply. And so the first brown plant hopper we call the biotype 1, which is occurred in 1972. By 1973, we select the IR26, very, very resistant. And in our, among the segregating population, we also selected another variety we call TN73-2. And then the war ends in 1975, April 75. At that time, we got another biotype of brown plant hoppers, biotype 2, starting in 1977, after the end of the war. And you know, that time, most of the agricultural posts in the Mekong Delta was almost abandoned because the expert or the technician evacuate to the United States or to somewhere else. So it's only the Cần University College of Agriculture. We have to take care of many things in agriculture. And at that time, we asked Dr. Kush to send varieties of new variety. And among the 4 varieties he sent, I selected the best one, the IR36, that you have seen on the screen. And from there, we try to multiply it from 5 grams in 2 crops. We get about 3,000 kilograms. And I asked the rector and the party committee chairman of the university to close the university for 2 months. And we get more than 2,000 students to bring, each one bring 1 kilogram of rice to grow on 1,000 square meters. And that is the time when we can spread the variety of rice very fast. And then in 2 months, the students get back to study and leaving the field to the local farmers and agricultural officers to distribute. And within 2 crop seasons, we were able to wipe out the brown plant hoppers, and we bring back the production to the farmer. I think this is the most historic moment that we in the university, teachers and students together, we work in the field, we help agriculture in the Mekong Delta, and from there on until now, we get better and better variety with better quality. That now you know that we are exporting rice, the 3rd largest rice exporting country, and the price of our rice now is even higher than Thailand rice. like it used to be. So this is what we contribute to historically about the rice production in the Mekong Delta.
Thank you, Professor Swan. That's a very long journey indeed. And you're also the first Vietnamese person to receive the VinFuture Prize. So could you shortly send a message to the young Vietnamese scientists here today with us? Since you are the first Vietnamese person to receive the VinFuture Prize, could you send a short message to the young Vietnamese scientists here with us today?
Oh, I don't understand yet. Yes, since I'm the very first Vietnamese who was chosen for this very prestigious prize, I must say that the the pre-screening committee and finally the prize council have approved, recognized such the work from my group. Instead of looking for many scientific papers in the journal and so forth, we just look at what is happening in the field that affect a better production, better life for the farmers. And to recognize that instead of something written in the scientific paper. This, I must say that the tendency now in many countries, and in Vietnam the same. Scientists tend to think of many topics and they do research and try to publish in the international journal and just leave it there without application in the field. And that is, I think, is a waste of money. And I think that we now scientists, when our budget for research is limited, we better identify practical problem in the society, in the respective areas where we, it suits to our specialization. And we try to find problem there, and we design get the hypothesis and design the experiment, and we can work there so that our results come out. It can be applied, can be used by the people who we concern, rather than to design some very, very high, very nice topic that after getting the result, we could put it in the shelf or just to write or to publish in the journal without touching any useful effect to the society. So I hope you, in order to be able to do so, we young people, we try to study very well. Speaking in Vietnamese, they say that phải học mà học thật chứ không phải học giả. Tại vì mình có học thiết thì mình mới biết được các cái vấn đề một cách rất là rõ ràng. Và từ đó mình mới có thể là nhận định các vấn đề khó khăn trong xã hội mình thuộc cái ngành của mình. để mà từ đó thì mình mới tìm các cái kinh phí để mình giải quyết cái nghiên cứu, để khi mà cái nghiên cứu có kết quả ra rồi thì xã hội có thể sử dụng liền, thay vì mình để mình xuất bản trong các cái tạp chí rất là cao siêu, mà từ đó thì mình có cái điểm cao thiệt, nhưng mà đối với xã hội thì nó rất giới hạn.
Thank you, Professor Swan. And now it's time to open the floor up to audience interactions, and we would love to invite the students and the researchers here today to engage in conversation with our scientists. And perhaps we'd like to start by inviting the laureates to, instead of starting with the audience posing a question to you, why don't you pose first a question to the audience, and the audience will engage in a public dialogue back together with us.
So we're flipping it around. You're used to getting a lot of questions, but now you deserve a bit of a break, so you can ask a question to the audience. And I'm sure there's some very bright students in the room. VinUni students, I'm looking at you, who can try their best to answer some questions that you have for them. So would anyone like to ask a question to some of the young scientists in the room today? Not too hard, of course.
So, to anyone in the room, what is the biggest concern you have about your future in science? No concerns at all. Fantastic.
The future is bright.
I'm sure, oh, I see some hands. Some young struggling scientists. Okay, I see a young man in that row there. Can we pass the mic to him? Sir, can you stand up, please?
Good morning, professor and student. It's me again. My name is Do Chung Hiếu, and I'm from Vietnam National University of Agriculture. My fields, I'm currently researching on a new crop. It's about the quinoa. Quinoa. It's like a rice from the South America. Yes, from the South America, and it can be it can use less water than rice. And my struggle in my future research and also science is that I'm kind of in Vietnam, like the researcher receive like a pretty low salary in the institution, and so that we cannot focus only for the research, to contribute our work to the social, and also about the facility. Yes, I think that's the main problem in present for our research, Thank you.
Thank you. So it sounds as though low salaries and maybe limited facility resources. Did you encounter any similar things when you were starting out as a researcher? Did you have similar struggles?
Yeah, I think that's very common, and hopefully it's changing. If you look at the issue of nature that's online right now, it talks about how we have to change the postdoctoral training environment and the opportunities and the salaries, because for many hundreds of years, students were expected to work very hard, very long hours, very low pay, and very limited opportunities. And I don't think that's sustainable anymore. I'm sure many of us had the same challenges when we were young, and hopefully your generation can change the scenario to make it much more attractive for young people in science.
Great, thank you, thank you. Any other questions for our young scientists in the room?
Would you also have any advice for somebody who is in that position right now, since I'm sure this fear is shared by many scientists? For the previous question, yes.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to find the perfect environment, but you want to look around and say, of the people who are a little bit older than you, who are the happy ones? Where are they working? Which mentors and professors seem to be the most supportive? Which departments and universities seem to be the most helpful? So that takes a lot of work and research and conversation, but that might make it easier to find the successful, supportive environments.
Would any other professors like to pose a question to the audience? Or I see just now some of the audience members wanted to ask a question back or respond to Professor Drucker's question about challenges. Yes, in the middle.
I'm a faculty at Wien University, and I just want to respond a little bit on your questions, and on the same line with the questions of the gentleman over there, is how to pick nice scientific problems, and I can see the impact of your research on millions' lives. How would you think about making it sustainable from the point of view that bringing a little bit profit for researchers, and that may solve some of the problems that the gentleman just raised. So the question is, how would you think the mechanism to, because the impact of your research is really huge, but how would you draw the benefits for the researchers from your, the results of your research?
Sorry, the volume's a bit quiet. Could you speak just a little bit louder about the question? Sorry.
Okay. So the question is, how would you think of drawing some benefit or profit from your research, because your research have a huge impact, but the researchers might not take their own benefits from that?
So I guess if I interpret the question correctly, it's about how can you use the benefits from your research to support other researchers? Is that
exactly? Yeah, but your research actually, how to keep it sustainable? How do you fund your research using the results of your research yourself?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we understand the question.
Like maybe you can earn revenue from research to support other researchers.
Yeah, so we're not 100% certain we have the correct understanding, but I think there are many ways that we can use the success of research to help build the next generation. So if one is successful, it's easier to get grants, either from the public sector or the private sector. It's also easier to have partnerships with the private sector and have efforts that commercialize research, and very often revenues flow back to the institution to support programs. And then philanthropy, charity, is attracted by success stories. And so if one's research is successful, it's a great story to be able to go to the community, to other professors, to people who support the university and say, look at this success. I have many young people who are fantastic, who can probably build on the success. So I think there are multiple ways that we can use stories of success to build the next generation and opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Drucker.
Does anybody in the audience have more questions for the laureates? Yes, I see a young lady on this side. Could we pass the microphone to her, please?
Good morning. My name is Quỳnh Anh. I'm from Newton Grammar School, and this is the question that I would like to ask Associate Professor Svetlana Mozhov. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. So I have known that you have played a very pivotal role in identifying and characterizing the active form in GLP-1. And I really want to know, I think that you have faced a lot of challenges in being acknowledged and recognized in your role in the research project and the innovation of this product. And I would like to ask if how did you overcome these challenges, and what would you what would you advise the young girls who are pursuing STEM in the future? Because I really want to study about how to make opportunities for women in STEM more open in the future. Thank you.
Well, I decided to be more outspoken about my own contribution to the discovery of GLP-1. I understand that the literature is very vast, and not everybody has chance to read who did what and when. And so then I decided that I have to speak for myself and try and explain to everybody what was my role, more as a scientist, in discovering that. And it somehow, people start reading my papers then, went back to that. And I think they realized who did what and when. And I started to get recognition to my own work. What do I suggest? I think my suggestion is always, when we write papers as scientists or as reviews, to try and look and look into the literature and try and show which are the primary papers which came. And if that's going to be practiced, that's something which some journals even request, then there will be no issues in trying to decide the role of individual scientists and groups which played in the any discovery. But I think what we need to remember is that discoveries and applications are a result of collaboration of many different scientific groups. And for example, for the GLP-1, it was really a collaboration between the chemists like myself and also biologists and clinicians. And so we have to think about really a group of people who contribute to advancing the knowledge and understanding the biology of GLP-1.
Thank you for your answer.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Yes, please pass the microphone to the woman in the front, and then maybe somebody from this panel over here. Yes, the young lady raising her hand right outside.
In the front.
Thank you. Dear professors and laureate, I'm a staff from VUnity, and my question is: we talk about a lot of things about success, but I wonder, of course, that in the journey become a scientist, we encounter a lot of failure. So I wonder, all of the laureate here, which is your biggest or which is your essential failure that, highly impact your journey become scientist or your professional and personal life. So I want to hear more about failure and what is your advice for young scientists and young generation as well when encounter failure and standing up to that, standing up after the failure?
Sure. I'm very good at failure, so I will answer that question. So I started doing science right after my medical training, and I had no real scientific training, never really worked in a lab, never did a summer project, never had a BSc or a master's degree or a PhD. And when I got to the lab, it was very difficult for me to make a 1 molar solution of salt. I really had to think, molecular weight is 58.44. So I knew nothing, and it was very difficult, and most of the experiments I did not work, and every single day I went home and I was depressed, and I wanted to go back to clinical medicine. And that lasted for months. And I was told by other people in the lab, maybe you should go back to clinical medicine. And I think this is a common experience. Failure in science is common. Many experiments don't work. One needs to have resilience and determination and a life outside science. So when one goes home, there's a cat that loves you, or a partner that's interested in you, or a hobby that you do that's enjoyed. Because I think failure is inherent in science, and no matter how successful you are, you will still encounter failure. So we have to have a lot of strategies for our own personalities and then the way we shape our lives to help us cushion failure, which I think is just part of being a scientist.
Well, I just want to add that you have to be interested in the project and in the science which you are doing. It's inevitable that you're going to have failures and the experiments will not work all the time. But if you want to solve that problem, you are going to find ways to do it. Whether you will read more literature or you will be more resilient, but ultimately I think the bottom line is that you have to work on a problem which you find is interesting and in which you can spend a lot of time trying to solve it. So don't get discouraged, but find a project which you really love to study.
Thank you. So I think that question just leaves us out of time for this panel. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today. And we're looking forward to hearing your public lectures this afternoon so the audience can learn more about your inventions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, we've witnessed that scientific exchange is two-way. It's not only a one-way street. And we do hope that through these conversations that will continue to build these collaborations between scientists in Vietnam and all around the world. So ladies and gentlemen, we've hoped that you've gained some new perspectives and ideas today. And from our laureates, we've learned that life-changing science requires hard work, collaboration, failure, but also celebrations of the successes.
And as we approach the conclusion of this morning's event, we invite you to enjoy the empowering melodies of If We Hold On Together, performed by Zaw Sang Choir.
Do you know this song? Have you heard If We Hold On Together, Vicky?
I have. I think it's from the movie The Land Before Time, and it's a movie about dinosaurs, and they came together, herbivores and carnivores and all different kinds of dinosaurs who were supposed to be enemies, but they all ended up being friends. So I think it's a great song that sends a message of collaboration, and we hope that you will all enjoy it now.
If you know this song, please sing along. It's great to hear from the audience as well. So if you know it, don't be shy, sing along. But we'll leave it to the experts, the Zasang Choir, if we hold on together. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Zosang Choir, for the wonderful performance. And we would like to welcome back on stage all of our VIN Future Prize laureates to receive beautiful flowers from VIN University students, as well as the VIN Future Prize Council and the pre-screening committee, VIN Uni and the VIN Future Foundation, to join us all in this last performance. Please welcome back on stage our laureates and distinguished guests. Please feel free to stand in the center and join in the performance with us. And we'll convene for a beautiful group photo. We would love to invite the VIN University students to present flowers to all of our laureates. We invite the audience to stand and clap along and maybe dance along too. Everybody, let's stand up together and let's join in the final notes of this song. Yes.
Thank you very much. Scientists and artists at the same time. Wonderful. So ladies and gentlemen, as we close, we express our deepest gratitude to our laureates, our audience, and our performers for joining us today. Please join us in the afternoon for more in-depth presentations of how these innovations work, their impact, and the future research directions. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful day, and congratulations to the laureates. Thank you.